My name is Ives-Bain. I'm a nurse and I have been here for 21 years. And I am currently the Palliative Care and Bereavement Coordinator for the Neonatology program. So I help families when children have a life-limiting condition or when the babies die. And I work with them through the process of their dying as well as in the months and years afterwards to support the family. And I help my colleagues as staff to work through the process as well. When I'm brought into a situation, families have often been given very devastating news that their child has a condition or their clinical care is such that we can't keep them alive. And the team will bring me in and introduce me. I often say to a family, I'm really sorry you have to meet me because you didn't expect this when you had a baby. And we spend time getting to know each other a little bit because I often may not even know the parents' names. We then start talking about what options there might be for that family. And some of the options can include anything from helping to tell their child's story through photos and through mementos, all the way through to considering whether or not going home to withdraw life-sustaining medical therapy could be a possibility for them. We'll also encourage families to think about who they want to be there, how they want to celebrate their child's too short life. And these are things that parents in crisis may not have even begun to think about. So it's baby steps. We really work to try and help them understand the need for these things, the benefit to families by telling them the stories of other families confidentially without sharing that information. And we encourage families to take the things that they think will help them and just ignore the ones that don't feel right in their hearts. In the NICU, we value every family as being an individual who comes from a community, and we have learned from every family we have the honor to interact with. We've been blessed at the hospital as well to have a cultural program where all of our staff have been trained in cultural sensitivity. So we recognize that I may meet someone who comes from a certain country, but I don't know their story and what their wishes are until I ask them. And that's been the philosophy of our palliative care and bereavement program for the last 20 years. And that has allowed us to meet the specific needs of that individual family and the individuals within the family. Because we may have a family where mom might be a Buddhist, dad might be an agnostic, and grandparents could be another faith background. And each of them have a story to tell with that child and a need to meet their spiritual requirements. So we have had situations where we've done a blessing, a baptism, a naming ceremony, and an honorary bris, because that's what that family needed to do. And we will do that whether a child is living or dying. So it's not about us and our North American perspective of life and death. It's about what that family needs. We've had many situations where we've been able to help families meet their needs, including times we've recently been able to Skype a family in a couple of different situations into their extended family across the world. So grandparents and aunts and uncles have been able to meet this dying child before the child has died. And having been involved in these situations, it really teaches me a lot about that need for family. And whether you're 7,000 miles away or not, you're still a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle who needs to speak to that child and say the important things that they need to hear. And in one of the recent situations we did this in, it was done totally in another language. And I do not speak that language. But as the person who was in the room facilitating this, I knew that they were doing things that they had to do, like a naming ceremony. The grandmother online was telling Daddy how to change the baby's diaper, because had she been here, that was her job, was to make sure her son changed her grandson's diaper properly. She sang to him. She told him she loved him and that someday she'd see him in the next place. And these are very powerful opportunities that when you separate families by distance because of reality, can't happen. And so we've been very lucky that our hospital supports us so fully to meet the family's needs as opposed to just meeting our clinical needs as a team. The idea that it takes a village to raise an infant, I think, applies equally to the concept that it takes a village to bury an infant and to say goodbye and support a family through their grief. In North America, we have a tendency to want to put grief behind us and focus on the next steps. And we have learned in the field of perinatal bereavement that families don't just get over it, that this takes time, this takes support, and this takes someone to listen. And by encouraging the community that that family comes from to be part of that journey allows families to use the resources that they have in place. In our province, we're very fortunate that we have organizations that provide parent support. So we can hook families up with other bereaved parents to help make sense of some of the emotions that they're going through. We also have the ability, because of our role in this hospital, to encourage families to come back, to talk to the team, to find out information that might not have made sense when the experience was happening at that moment. And all of those things help families to make the story continue. So one of the other things that we offer families as part of that continuing bond and continuing relationship is the opportunity to come back to the hospital for an annual remembrance gathering. These events are usually held in June. They invite families from the previous year or so, and we encourage families to come and bring whoever is important to them. So on average, we have anywhere from 180 to 250 people. That would represent probably about 40 or 50 babies who have passed on our NICU, and they bring along as many people as they need. And it's a very non-religious opportunity to just be there, tell a little more about their story. Their children, if they choose to send us photos, their children's photo is up on a big screen, and they get to talk about their child and what's important to them in their memories. When infants are dying, they're part of a family. There are going to be grandmas and grandpas, hopefully. There are going to be mummies and daddies, or mummies and mummies, or daddies and daddies. And there are often siblings. And parents in the beginning become very frightened to involve young children in the experience of death because we're a very death-denying society. So we have to encourage families to involve their children because often they knew mom was pregnant. Often they knew there was a baby coming. And if mom and dad come home and are sad without a baby, it's very difficult for them to make sense of it. And children's imaginations have taught us that their imagination is often much worse than reality. So we bring children in with family support, and we encourage the children to become involved in their brother or sister's life for as much time as they can. We do hand painting with them, we do photos with them. We encourage them when they're old enough to read stories to their brother and sister, and we'll videotape that. We involve them in making of the molds that I showed earlier. And we also give kids ways of expressing their emotions, partly because often they've not had the words before to talk about dying and death. I often will bring my stethoscope out and help a child to understand his brother or sister is dying by listening, because they can listen to mommy and daddy's heart and the doctor's heart and the nurse's heart and their brother or sisters, and it starts to help them come to some concrete reality of that story. And in the months afterwards, we encourage families to involve their children in support groups as well, when that's important. And we have a lot of literature for children that helps them to tell the story of their baby who died. So we provide those thanks to the donations we receive through our Women's Auxiliary here at the hospital. And we can give these items, which are fairly costly, out to families to help them to try and explain something that's hard to explain. And we'll do that even when siblings haven't been able to come in, either because of distance or parental discomfort with doing that. So it's very much about us walking with the family through the journey as opposed to telling them what they have to do, and trying to provide them with the most information we can to help their children. And I've gone out even to schools and talked with kids in their classroom situations so that the other kids understand why they are talking about some of the things they talk about. In the NICU, when we're helping families, we need stuff to help those families out. We have little gowns that we have in variety of sizes, so all the way from super tiny all the way up to big baby size. And they come with blankets so that parents who didn't have an opportunity to purchase anything can dress their child so that they can feel like real parents. And we have women who are wonderful and donate knitted hats and booties for us. We also get these beautiful little sweaters, and for some parents this might be the only thing that they have that's small enough to fit their tiny baby. We have a group in the community who provides us with teddy bears, and these teddy bears we provide for siblings, so they go away with something from their baby brother or sister, but also can be provided to parents when they're leaving the hospital with nothing in their arms when they should have left with a baby in their arms. So these again become symbols of their relationship. We always make sure our families receive information. And while our information might not be written in every language, parents take the time when they want to understand to find someone who can translate it for them. So this is our initial package that our families receive, and it includes everything from how to fill out paperwork, to how to plan a funeral, to how to stop their breast milk from coming in, because many of these moms were planning on breastfeeding their children. And these are all things that, again, are not part of our everyday lexicon of discussion. So how do they know how to start? In terms of resources that we have for our families, there are great books that have been written by others, so why are we not using them? Books like Something Happened helps a parent to explain to their child about the death of their baby. And it's done in a very gentle way. We also have books that are done for children of a younger age, like No New Baby, which again is just simple language to help a child understand. When I mentioned that my role is about palliative and bereavement care, one of the things is parents have to make very, very difficult decisions. And we have a couple of different books, like this one, called Loving and Letting Go, which help families to hear the stories of other families to help them know that decisions that they're making are the best decisions for that situation that they're in. And one of the other things we do, and I don't have photos of it, but if you go on to the Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep website, you can see professional photographs that are done for and with families for free. This organization is available throughout the United States and Canada and many other countries in the world. And the photographers are all professional photographers, and they provide these photos to families as part of their memories. And very, very powerful. And while we do good pictures with our camera, we don't have the high-end cameras in the unit. So it gives parents a legacy that they can never forget. And it's a legacy of the child's story as opposed to the technology that they had in their life. These molds that you can see are done with families, and this one is actually of a little baby's foot and mummy's hand holding that child's foot, so that concrete reality of their connection will always be there. This is very comforting for many families, but there are families who find this kind of a weird thing and don't want to go there. So we offer it, we show them samples so that they can see what might come out. And sometimes in making these items, it's not necessarily the end result. It's the experience of doing it together with their child that has more power. And we do the standard things that are done in many hospitals, like the ink printed hand and footprints. And I'll often encourage parents to do those because they can use it for a prayer card. They could use the footprint or handprint also for a tattoo. And I've got many parents who email me back and show me tattoos with some of the most beautiful hand or footprints as part of them. So why not? If we provide the options, the world is up to them in terms of how they connect with that child in the future. So these are just a very tiny sample of all of the things we have. We're really lucky to have a group of women in the community who make us smocked gowns for baptisms and blessings that the parents get to keep. So all of these things are part of that telling the story and the legacy of that child who is dying or has died. I've learned to recognize over the years that this work is difficult, but I can't change the outcome. If a child's body cannot survive, or if they have a condition that they're not able to live through, my job is to support my colleagues, my job is to support the family, and I've recognized that this is the one time as a nurse that we can make the biggest difference. We can offer things to families and help them to get through something they never imagined even beginning. So I go home often with a full heart, knowing that I have done something and I've helped my colleagues do something that parents wouldn't have gotten otherwise. I also have the benefit in my role of following up with families, so I get to see them through the chaos into some resilience. I see families who can go on and hopefully have healthy children in their future, who can remember their child with love and affection, and the sadness isn't so strong. I can see them to a point where they get to share their child's story with others and often do fundraising opportunities and things in memory of their baby. And all of those things tell me that we do a good job. My nursing colleagues and my physician colleagues don't see that as often as I do because they're not as lucky enough to be in my job. How else do I take care of myself? I'm really lucky I'm married to a nurse. He understands. He actually used to work at our hospital, and he gets when I've had a bad day. And my son, who's now 20, also knows when his mother's had a bad day, and usually is a little more tolerant of my irritations. And I garden, I make jewelry, and I like to have fun. And those are things that help me come back day after day. And there are times when I've had a really bad week where I put my hands up in the air and say, why am I doing this? But then that next minute, it appears, I'll get a phone call from a parent who says, Lori, I just wanted you to know, I was thinking about you today because I just had a good moment thinking about my baby. And that just takes it all right back to a good place.